All right, today we are going to talk about cancer. And before we get into cancer, just know that there are these molecules called growth factors in our body. They are proteins that stimulate cell division, and growth factors bind to receptors, and when that happens, it triggers the cells to grow and divide. All right, so here we have on the right a picture of the cell cycle again. Remember, it starts with G1, S, and G2. Those three make up interphase. Then we have M that stands for mitosis, and then we have C that is cytokinesis. And each of these traffic lights on the cell cycle symbolize a checkpoint. They monitor the cell cycle and can stop it if something goes wrong. So for instance, in S phase, when DNA is being replicated, the cell will not progress into G2 until the cell makes sure that the DNA is copied correctly and completely. And in order to progress to the next phase of the cell cycle, we need these proteins called cyclins, like cell cyclin. If you've got the right cyclin, it binds to a CDK. You don't need to really remember CDK, but when we have that cyclin, it goes to the next cell cycle. So this is going to be on the test. Cyclins are made at specific points to progress in the cell cycle. And as I said, if a cyclin is not made, it can't go to the next phase. So for instance, if we have cyclin B, as we see there, if it is not made, then the cell is not going to go into mitosis. If we don't have cyclin E, we're not going to go into S phase, and so on and so forth. So what happens if the checkpoints fail? And that does happen. Well, if the checkpoints fail and the cell goes through the cell cycle when it's not supposed to, that is uncontrolled growth, and that is called cancer. Cancer cells spend less time in interphase, and they divide more quickly and form tumors, and these steal nutrients and crowd out normal cells. There are two types of tumors you may have heard of. Benign refers to abnormal growth of cells, but it does not spread and can usually be safely removed. Malignant, though, is when the cells break away and spread to other parts of the body, and that is called metastasis. And when it spreads, it's very dangerous. Apoptosis is called programmed cell death. So that is a normal cell death that the body uses. For instance, in a tadpole, it removes the tail. In our bodies, when our fetuses are developing, it creates our fingers by killing those cells. But it also is used by the body to kill cancer cells or cells that are infected with the virus. P53 is a tumor suppressor. It regulates the cell cycle, and it's important in suppressing tumor. And mutations in the P53 gene may lead to cancer. So if there is DNA damage or nutrient deficiency, P53 will stop the cell cycle. That's called cell cycle arrest. And if it determines that that cell is dangerous or cancerous, it can cause that cell to do apoptosis. This is the last slide. P53 tumor suppressor regulates cell growth and division. If a cell has DNA damage, it could become cancerous. P53 induces apoptosis in cells with DNA damage. And defective P53 genes cannot regulate cell division or DNA damage, which could lead to cancer. Sorry, this is the last slide. Just know that a carcinogen is something like pollution or cigarettes or things in deodorants that can produce or promote the development of cancer.